All right, let's go.
Great. Oh, okay. Well, that's important. I'm looking at you. Staying ready.
Well, like a sucker dad.
I like this. The chief's building and he can't even get his own seat here. You just wait on it. Yeah. 100,000? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're live, guys.
Yeah.
Live.
Okay. All right, guys, we're going to start. We may have some IS everybody's working on it, and there's nobody more qualified. So thank you all for coming. This is the Thursday, September 5th, Marine Advisory Board meeting. I hope everybody had a nice summer. Hope you had a pleasurable August off. We're going to cover a lot of ground. There's a lot of folks here. A lot of discussions. That's what this is going to be about. And we'll have to do things from really significant trends forward. Let's start, please, with a roll call.
Absolutely. Chair Whitten.
Here.
Vice Chair Harrison. Barry Flanagan. John Lynch. Robin Chiarelli. Tyler Brunel. Here. Noel Norval. Robert Prince.
Here.
Jason Duffar.
Here.
Mr. Knowles. Here. Elizabeth George. Here. Robert Washington. Ed Weebles.
Here.
And Bill Walker.
Here.
And quorum, sir.
We have a quorum. Minutes from last month, not last month, the July meeting, a lot of meeting now. Jimmy Harrison, with the rest of the board, had put together a mid-year review, kind of strategic planning discussion. We talked about things that we're going to refer to as MAB action items. Depending on the meeting and how exhausted everybody is later on, we'll pick it up under all new business, but it is something we'll continue. So nobody's efforts were wasted from last meeting. Approval of the minutes, again, I'm assuming everybody read it. Any issues? Anybody have an issue? Yes? No? Can we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, minutes are approved. It takes us to a discussion. We're doing this early because we've had a number of folks that don't generally join, and we're really honored to have them. This is a discussion that's going to be led by our state representative, Chip Lamarca. Chip, you want to come up? Sure. And I can introduce it. I'm not even going to try to. We've been working. It's a complicated but very easy to understand study. I'm sorry, request, and all we've got is total confusion right now. So Chip's going to set it straight. This is all.
It's an easy introduction, right?
Yeah.
And just so that's my wife Eileen. She's here. We just came for another event. Just so she knows where I got the red, white, and blue M&M's from last time. It was here, and the store. I'm on a diet. Anymore. That's a copy there. I'll get this to Bill. I just bring copies for everybody. Basically, what is going on is in Tallahassee up to 2021. If anybody wanted to legislatively change any anchoring, mooring, derelict vessel, any of those issues, you really had to deal with specific coordinates. I know that we worked on something at Middle River years ago where there were some issues, but the idea of saying that every time there's an area where you want to put some enforcement in and give our fine folks that our first responders, our police and fire folks that are out there dealing with some of these issues, specific areas where people can and cannot anchor and more. What we did come up with, and A legislator in Jacksonville, who's a good friend of mine, he came into the legislature with me in 2018, ran the bill. I co-sponsored it with him. What the goal is to create an area where you have designated areas where you can set up anchoring and mooring. And a lot of this really for me, because I represent from State Road 84 to Boca Raton along the coast. The biggest area of concern that I had brought to me, Sonnet and Harbor Beach and Lake Sylvia and some other areas. But what we came up with is a plan, and I'll just kind of lay it out really quickly. The plan basically says any county can set up anchoring and mooring areas where they can regulate how long a vessel can stay, which ultimately is the root cause of a lot of these issues. The vessels get to that place and then don't go anywhere after that. And whether the seaworthy or able to even move, that's another conversation. But the way it came about is they said every county can establish recreational and navigable waterway areas. Once you've assessed that, and Broward County did do this, and the reason for this is that Hollywood has already done what my understanding is that Fort Lauderdale would like to do, and I've been working with your interim city manager, Susan Grant, on this, and at least sharing information. She's the reason I'm here tonight and in meeting us tonight. This map shows the navigable waterways in Broward County, and you'll see that goes out the New River, then primarily down the east side of the Intercoastal. You've got North Lake and South Lake and Hollywood. From this GIS map from Broward County, determined there are 3,800 acres of navigable waterways, roughly 6 square miles. So the way the bill reads is you can have 10% of that set aside for areas that you can designate anchoring and mooring. Hollywood, through their process, and that's I'll make sure electronic copy of this gets to everybody, but Hollywood set aside basically in North Lake and South Lake of the 3,811 acres, which 10% of that's 381 acres, they basically accomplished setting aside roughly 43% of the total. It's 162 acres. So what that means is roughly 57% of the areas that are allowed to be designated left within the county. Now we've got other municipalities down up and down the coast. So I think timing is critical to at least decide what you want to do as an advisory board and as a city. I just want to make sure everybody understands how the process works. The city would propose a resolution, and that resolution would go to the county commission. The county commission would then put an ordinance and a two-part hearing on their agenda, and ultimately they would, in fact, adopt what you've decided you want to do. Once that 100% of the total areas that can be set aside is done, you can look cities and areas that have been designated and look back and see if they want to give up some of those areas. But I think it's easier to kind of claim that water area from the beginning. So that's kind of what I have, and I'm here. Look, I'm a resource. I'm here to help however I can with the city. I'm not here to remove the ability for people to do recreational boating. I understand the pushback in some of those areas, but we also want to make sure that our neighbors, we're not. I've never gone down this road saying I want to control the view of what's behind someone's house because I don't want to look at something. We all have to deal with different things, but we want to make sure that we don't have dangerous situations when some of these vessels are obviously left behind and there's nobody in them, whether it's the fuel in them, it's the sanitary issues, or if they're not properly moored or anchored and a storm comes, we have all those issues. So I think this gives the city and enforcement more control. I think the initial time period is 45 days, and then there are periods of 30 days where somebody can stay in an area. And if somebody's doing this about the love of the water and the love of being on their boat, they can probably figure out within the county other places they want to go within 30 days. But again, I don't want to interject opinions. I just want to say that we want to be the recreational boating capital of the world and yachting capital of the world, and we know how important our waterways are here in not just Fort Lauderdale, but I represent Deerfield Beach down to Fort Lauderdale, and everybody loves being on the east side of town and enjoying our waterways. So I want to make sure that we can do that safely, and also make sure the neighbors don't have to deal with catastrophes and storm come and things like that. So it's kind of that's my pitch. I don't know if you have any questions or if Susan wants to, on behalf of the city, wants to share anything.
Hi, Susan Grant, acting city manager, and I'm just here to hear your input. Been working with Bob and Carl, and if we'd like to proceed, we're open to doing that. Again, I don't know that it's a perfect answer, but I think it's another tool in the toolbox. And we did check with the police chief regarding how this would work enforcement wise, and they're on board. So
This is done. Couple of questions. I had a conversation. I'm going to look at the portion of the thing that says, person may not anchor a vessel for more than 45 consecutive days. That's a long period of time. I mean, if I'm living on Lake Silver, I'd like to see it there. So I talked to Mike Owen over there at the county, and he's the one that's in charge of this. He says, no, 45 days. Could we do it for a week? He says, no, it has to be for 45 days. Is there any taste in Tallahassee for amending that text to give a neighborhood like this a little more flexibility?
So I would say this, in dealing with Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission and other entities in Tallahassee, this took a long time to get to this point. It would be my recommendation, without giving you an answer, because I can't speak for 120 other House members and 40 senators and the governor signing a bill, that you adopt what you decide you can live with. And
Actually, it's the county that adopts it. We don't
I understand, but your request kind of goes to them, right, through resolution, and they would. That's basically what Hollywood does right now. The answer to your question is, of course, we can go back and try to make it more streamlined, more limited, but tighten it up a little bit. I think working within the guidelines of the 2021 bill, because we didn't have this tool before. Again, we had to say, well, specifically this area behind Sunrise Intercoastal in the Middle River is an area.
I'm familiar with it because I was involved in putting Middle River together.
Yeah. So I think following, putting something together with the county, getting it approved now, so we can tighten it up after. I'm there.
Gotcha.
We'll likely be there for 2 more years if
Work with Mike and the people
God River County. But I think going back, well, I mean, legislatively, we can tighten up a little bit if we say, hey, you know what, this has been working out great in Hollywood. The Ludders adopted it, but 45 days is a little bit too long.
Another provision. In the anchoring limitation area, there needs to be buoys that are installed and maintain buoys marking the boundary of the anchoring limitation area. So let's say we take something in the middle. Other vessels could anchor outside the boundaries of that, and they wouldn't be covered by the 45 days. So I think that needs to be worked on a little bit too.
Thinking of Lake Sylvia, smaller, kind of like Lake Boca. When you have areas where people kind of come in and those are weekend boaters and Sunday stay there, you've got your outer perimeter. If you kind of have an outer perimeter and you're anchoring there, as far as I'm concerned, you're in the throughway, you're in the traffic to be in the waterway, you kind of be in the street. I don't know if we can tighten that language up more to say that law enforcement has the ability to say, like, hey, this is the area where you're allowed to anchor in. Right now, you're in the path of where the boaters.
We'll need to work with Mike on creating what that circle is for the boundaries. Okay, understand.
So there are areas, Bill's familiar with up in the Northeast as well, where you cannot anchor. You have to grab a mooring ball. So is there any discussion about requiring folks to use a mooring ball and therefore not uproot anything or damage anything, et cetera? And therefore, if you're maxed out, you're maxed out?
So from my perspective, I'd find it that conversation. I also don't want to put additional requirements on local government, on the city, saying, hey, you have to put 50 or how many ever.
Yeah, but they can become a profit center too, which isn't your issue.
Which is fine. That's how the free market works. I'm good with it. But I want to make sure that if we pass something in Tallahassee, that locals can implement. Yeah.
We're going to make a distinction between anchoring and mooring. Mooring has a mooring. We've got a whole section in the FDEP regs concerning mooring fees. So I'm not sure whether we'd be able to go ahead and put mooring buoys under this anchorage limitation area, because that would be a great way to limit the number of vessels.
We'll get to, folks, in a second. Anybody on the board have questions, discussions?
I just have one, maybe it's a silly question, but we say 45 days, so if the boat leaves for a day, comes, misses one night, they start back again, 45 days. Is there anything in there about consecutive? I haven't looked at it, to be very honest with you.
I want to get clarification on how the county interprets that, because they were kind of they were the implementers of the bigger picture and saying, all right, measure the navigable waterways. Now it's figure out what 10% of that is, okay? And now you're looking at these areas. So I want to see how they would interpret it. But I also know that we're going to have, we being Fort Lauderdale, whoever has this set up, Hollywood right now, law enforcement's going to have to deal with it.
Right.
They're going to be in the water. You've been here. Go ahead.
This says 45 consecutive days in any 6-month period.
So we just move
She's
a little
asking
further,
about
but we just move a
waiting
little
and
further,
getting back at
but you
the-
just leave and move a little further down to another area.
You technically can't do it. They're doing this in the Keys. You can only stay at a marina for 6 months max. You have to move your boat, and you're not allowed to come back for some period of time, etc. So I would say it's something that can be regulated, but it's not.
To your point, with last thing I want to
Oh, yeah,
have.
is the Bergen Nine.
Well, yeah, I don't think we drop stuff enough on a daily basis. I want to, have them counted. Well, you were 10 feet over from where you were yesterday. Oh, you went to the marina to get some fuel, and you came back and you anchored, 20 feet over, whatever.
It actually calls for it to be at least 1 nautical mile distance from more than
Mr. Walker.
I think, by the way, I think if you get to moorings, it makes it a lot easier. And say you're at this one, you're not allowed to that one. You're here.
Is there any environmental language in there in terms of like pump outs and that type of stuff? You got a living board, and I may not be in there. I might be down to the city.
that would be covered by other sections.
Yeah, not specifically in here, but that was a lot of the kind of the cause.
Right.
No,
Right.
that's right.
Sure. So,
Anybody else on the board? How about the public? Yes.
I'm Curtis. I live on Lake Sylvia and have for 11 years. So there's some practical issues with anchoring. So we are a dumping ground for abandoned boats, and we're also a dumping ground for nice boats. This summer now, people, 4 months, they drop it. I met one guy who's going to Poland, dropped his boat, leaves it for 4 months. We have boats hitting our houses, hitting our docks, hitting our boats on a daily basis. Mitch Molessi, who also lives on the lake, they had 2 boats towed out. I've got pictures of boats, sitting on top
Just
of
in
my
the last
boat.
week, this happened.
So the state original regulation used to talk about recreated, and that language has somehow disappeared. So, anchoring, just throwing a boat. I mean, if I just parked a bus in front of your house and left it for 45 days, you might not be happy. If it's water, we have boats that have been there for years, multiple years. We've had many boats sink. We have boats that are sinking and gas and sewage coming in them. And I haven't seen a boat in 11 years that come down on the lake. Every morning, I see people dropping a 5-gallon bucket of urine and feces into the lake. Multiple boats, because the liverports use a Home Depot 5-gallon bucket. So we need to write a bill that addresses people have to be on a boat, and it's got to be navigable, because that's the other problem. I have pictures here, 100 boats that were towed in, demasted, full of crap.
Tim Stocks this week.
Yeah.
Three-quarters of the boats out the lake right now are unoccupied.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? And half of those boats don't have anchor lights on it. The only way we're getting boats removed out of the lake, they sink, or they're derelict and they go into somebody's boat. They towed the other one out yesterday. I mean,
But they re-anchored it. Yeah, they just towed it out. And the other problem is none of them are registered. So these older boats, the Coast Guard says if you're anchored, the Coast Guard doesn't have to apply registration requirements or anything, which is great, because I guess if I get pulled over next time, I'll just pull over to the side of the road real quick and park. Because if you're parked, obviously you can't get a ticket, right? The cops agree to that. On the water, if you drop an anchor,
Stick a pole. They disagree.
not only but they won't even touch it. The Marine Patrol can't tow boats that hit our houses, that hit our boats. They come, they go, we're not allowed to move this. We paid for many boats to be removed. We paid for them to be towed. But this is great.
Sea Tow brought a boat in there that was
Sinking.
they were saving the boat. It was harder grounded 3 inches of water in front of LYC. He towed it into Lake Sylvan.
Guys,
45 minutes later, it sank.
let me just put a little order in. This is not a discussion amongst ourselves, a discussion with the rest of the group. You're right. You're right. Those of us who live here fully understand this. Don't even talk about pumpkins. I mean, that's something that just. I mean, I live on the Isles. Okay, if you look out, I've said it before, and you look down at night, and my neighbor was out there. He goes, "What's that?" I said, "That's shit."
Yeah.
What kind of shit you mean? No, the shit that comes out of you that you've got pumped up. It's disgusting.
It's summarize.
This is Sean ATM from the Coast Guard. We have the police here. They deal with this every single day. So you're preaching to the choir, but it's a choir that's listening.
Yeah.
So we're going to
So
hope.
I would summarize and say, it's not just 45-day anchoring or leaving a boat. There has to be somebody who's on the boat or at least coming to the boat.
And some of these boats are VRBOs now.
Yeah.
They're ready on
$5
$10 a night.
We need his name, please. Sir, can you state your name?
Kurt, K-U-R-T.
Uh-huh.
Holstein, H-O-L-S-T.
So, guys, just if you would, with due respect to Kurt and everyone else here, just so we can get home before midnight, I want to move forward a little bit. I want to toss this back. Sure. Anything else?
So I'll end on saying my goal is that I'm a resource and bring state resources however we need, whether it's tightening this bill up after, but I do think we should, the city should move forward with something on the, in this area specific to derelict vessels and other things. There is language currently in here now as far as how it's enforced. I'd love to have a conversation offline with local law enforcement as well as FWC. I will tell you that we have a lot of pushback from FWC of really doing anything that changes current activity. And that if they were here, I'd say the same thing. I mean, I've been involved at the state level the last 6 years and have the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Emergency Management, people like that come in the office. It's probably the one organization that when they come in the office and they leave, I said, we really didn't get anything done. And it's not, I don't know if that's just the way they're wired or what. And I've worked with FDLE and other law enforcement organizations that are statewide that have not felt like that. So if there are specific issues, and I'm well aware of a lot of them, maybe not every single boat that's there, but I get pictures fairly regularly from Tim and the other folks. We want to make sure that you have the tools to clean them up, and we don't want to put law enforcement in a position where they're doing something that maybe a towing organization should do. People should have responsibility for it, whether it's their home, their car, their boat, their trailer. You can't just leave something somewhere and let it rot. I mean, especially when there's dangerous chemicals, hazardous materials, disgusting materials, if you will. Everybody else has to maintain what they have, and you've got to maintain 13 vessels.
Fair question. So that's the state law, so it's 45 days.
Mhm.
So can the county or the city add on contingency items like pump outs or other requirements? Because you just drop your anchor in the county in 45 days. I don't know what the law is.
It's covered by other statutes.
Right.
Travis, you're familiar with that.
Yeah, the issue that we'd have is to actually see the person dump that 5-gallon bucket. You call me after the fact and I don't see them, my guys don't see them, there's not a whole lot we can do.
I meant
It's
more,
a tough
when you take this thing, if they're there for 45 days, can you add on a couple of things to go, hey, by the way,
Pump out,
you the county?
If I'm charged with responsibility for drafting something, I will do it that way.
Just ask.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, the worst thing can happen is, say, Bob, can't do this. To which I say, why not?
I'll share. Sorry, legally, I'll share the statute, so you can read through it. But it does have, notwithstanding a person may anchor a vessel in an anchor condition area if the vessel suffers mechanical failure, unreasonable risk for 3 business days or until the vessel is repaired. There are some things in here that maybe we can look at it and find a hook where we can go have the vessel towed, and if there's a responsible person, not there with the vessel there if they're responsible, but if they're around and we can build. There are other parts of this that talk about imminent existing weather conditions and all that, but existing weather conditions or things that affect that boater shouldn't also affect, shouldn't pass that danger on to somebody in a home. It's there with their. Yes. So what are the consequences if they go over the 45 days? Like what's the repercussions on this? Because the one thing that we found in this whole boating industry is that there's really not a lot of consequences that have teeth. So I mean, if it's a fine of $75 a day, is someone like
Zero. Zero.
Well, I mean, obviously we're
They write
talking
all
about
these tickets and
enforcing something. Someone has to enforce it, and what are they enforcing? Is it a parking ticket? Is it something that they can be jailed for? Is it something they can lose their boat? I'm not sure what the civil
They
citation.
renew their driver's license with 33 tickets. I bought the man's boat for $500. 33 tickets. I took him to the dock.
So, in partial response to your question, there is a provision here. A vessel that is subject of more than 3 violations within 12 months which result in disposition other than acquittal or dismissal shall be declared to be a public nuisance and subject to 705.103 for a derelict vessel. It took it away.
So if they get 3 violations,
Yeah,
of state
now
law
there are-
in 45 days.
There are other things other than that, but that's the big one.
So bottom line, if I'm listening to that correctly, then if you stay for 45 days and you get 3 fines, 3 notifications, so at like
That's a possibility.
day 40,
That's a possibility that actually
you could technically be
Other
considered.
than that, it merely talks about issuing a citation for violation. It doesn't talk about what you find.
The question is, do we get a city fine to help fund this? Because right now we pay for the towing because we've been told there's no money in the budget for towing.
Well, and we had a
Neighbors pay for it. It takes,
We get grants for disposing of derelict vessels.
it takes several years to get those down.
from start to finish.
The last one was towed and destroyed. We were able to take
So I don't know if we're talking about, I think if you got a 45-day period, it seems to me somehow it would be your responsibility to keep track of this. That's at the end of 45 days, you knock on the door and you say, you gotta move. I assume it's as simple as that. The problem is not necessarily every files. I just can't imagine leaving a boat there after the police have asked you to leave, but I imagine that's the recourse.
There's nobody to ask most of the time. The boats are abandoned.
That's ridiculous. Okay, we're not going to solve this, but you certainly opened our eyes to quite a few things. And you got to let us know how we can follow up. If you forward us information, we'll put it on the agenda each time to just follow up and discuss the progress we can make with you, but we're all on board.
Okay.
I think the confusion we have is that looking at patients over there as well, I didn't understand what the legislation was. And I've had other folks again that reached out and said, well, you won't be able to anchor in Lake Sylvia, we got over that. And then you won't be able to stay overnight in Lake Sylvia, we got over that. So the message simply needs to be clearer to the public that that's
I think the goal is there an ask for this board to help designate areas? Because that's what I was kind of thought I heard you say. Was that The city would probably, you're an advisory board, so the city would.
And I think that's, what Lake Sylvia is the one that came to our attention. But if the board would want to make other recommendations, that would be appropriate as well.
Because technically, you're saying that we have 51% of what's left over to. You've got this basically 50 as of right now. I mean, you'd have a total of 57% of 381 acres to designate. Which I don't. Yeah, I think you're talking about Lake Sylvia. You're talking about. I mean, I think you're already mooring over by the pillars and places like that, right? Yeah. So I mean, but I want to provide some guardrails really, and locally, I think you've got to make some of those determinations, but.
It's supposedly as a federal mooring zone, because that's by the pillars. The bureau was told that's federal, but that's a federal zone.
Waterway.
Sean,
That area. That's what we were. That's what we were told.
would you ask Sean the question, please?
So over by the Pillars restaurant, or just north of Portofino, that one area, we've been told frequently, and I don't even remember where we were told this, but that area was a federal mooring zone, and that they, because many of the voters say that that's what they're told, and then the area people all seem to be told that all the time. So we were that it's not a Fort Lauderdale decided zone, like on the south side of the bridge.
So there's a designated waterway area that's controlled by the coast, the town is controlling with, how do we know?
Is it off the end of?
It's right on the Anticoast. I mean, it's the Anticoastal. So it's just north of the. I didn't think it was either, but I keep hearing people constantly say that's what it is and that they don't have to follow the same rules.
Well, we're gonna get.
But I know that he's been doing a lot of stuff over there helping us. So.
outside the, it's outside the state water bridge channel. He's just outside the water bridge, and to the inside of that is a regulated navigable channel. Out on the outside, I believe that is state property.
We'll get an answer to that. And I see Susan saying, please don't ask me that question, because I sure as hell don't know. So, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Just I do have a question. Sergeant, what is typically your what is the response when you go out to one of these vessels if someone's on it, they haven't abandoned it? What's the
For what complaint?
dumping waste? You have to see it, but any and all those things, if they've been there, if you know they've been there longer. Right now, you don't have that tool, but if you know that they have been there longer than 45 days, and this gets designated, I mean, what's your perception of what might happen? In other words, basically tell them they've got to leave.
Yeah, so we would tell them that. I would, to be quite honest, with that law, if that law went into effect in Fort Lauderdale, that would clean up a lot of the boats we have since they're just abandoned. There's nobody on them. My guys, with the tools they have, is like we write tickets for the registration, the anchor lights, dragging anchor, those kind of things. And if we can get the person out there we can 100% know the boat doesn't have propulsion, doesn't have steering, can't do water, that kind of thing, we can start the derelict process on them. We've done that with a lot of boats that are in there. Another thing too, if Seatow is towing, Towboat US is towing a boat in there, and it's apparent it's derelict, like it's no question that it's in derelict state, then please call us. Try to get a picture or video of that, because we will investigate that for dumping. We've told Seatow,
Frankly, Marine Patrol gets so really enough.
we've told Towboat US is good about it. Still some Seatow that aren't local, we'll still do it, and they know. If you know that boat's derelict, do not only bring it to a marina. Do not bring it anywhere in
Challenge is Monday morning at 8 a.m. Marine Patrol's in the lake. Friday night at 10 o'clock, not in sight.
Right, I know.
So, this is the problem. There's parties and all sorts of things going on, and there's nobody there. So we've done it. We've called it. We've had some success. But you'll see in the pictures, it's often locals, other motorboats pulling in a derelict sailboat or sinking sailboat.
If you can get a picture of that boat and you get, especially the person operating vessel, and we can investigate that, then we can charge them with felony dumping. We've done it before.
Yep.
For a gentleman, we put a boat in there that was derelict, and we got adjudicated felony dumping.
I have to say, Marine Patrol, we've given, and they don't really have any authority.
Yeah.
Have been fantastic. So I don't mean to besmirch the.
No.
Like it's there isn't enough.
We understand. We don't have the time to talk about staffing. Chief Schultz is there. I guarantee if Chief Schultz's pockets are empty, we're looking for money, we're looking for additional folks, etc. So we're all on the same page. This was a terrific presentation. We appreciate it. It opened our eyes to a lot of things. Let's continue this. And please, if you keep us abreast of what's going on, we'll make sure we share it.
Absolutely.
Thank
Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone's time. Keep going. Make sure you pay your house bills. Chief Schultz, thanks to you and all the men and women that work with you. Providing that this moves forward, you have an ordinance in the city of Fort Lauderdale. I'm absolutely happy to look at this, for November and early next year to see if we can tighten it up. But
We'll have dialogues in the future.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I take my wife to some great places for dates, right?
What a guy!
So great stuff. That helped answer a number of questions. And, we acknowledge the fire chief, chief of police. We have Susan, we have Carl Williams. A lot of support for us all here, folks, and nobody takes it lightly, so thank you. So this is a really cool presentation. We have, right after Sergeant, please hang around, because we have, Brendan McDonald, Coastal Pilot's going to put on a presentation that's going to blow your eyes out. But right now we have Sergeant Travis O'Neill, and if you give us you still have a climate safety report? Okay, so we'll get a climate safety report, but Sergeant O'Neill took it upon himself to put a presentation together, which I think we referred to as Meet Your Fort Lauderdale Police Department Marine Unit. I can't tell you the respect that we all have for your guys here. It's safe to say that without your efforts, etc., it's just so. Let's just say that we have tremendous respect and adore you personally. So that means all your friends are welcome. And thank you. And we thank you all for joining us. Please acknowledge your team here and give us a report, and then take it over.
Yeah, let me do the crime and safety report real fast, and then we'll get to everything else. So this will be for July and August. So for July and August, the Fort Lauderdale Police Department Marine Unit responded to 171 calls for service. 9 of those were accidents. None of those were reported to have either no injuries or very minor injuries. We also conducted, we wrote 154 citations during those 2 months. One of the calls of note was with one of the fishing vessels. He had his stored bait in a cooler, a lock cooler on his vessel, his bait to take the charters out. And somebody came on the boat, broke the lock, and stole all the bait off the boat. There's actually a lot of money to bait, like a big ring cooler. There was good video of the person, and one of the crew members of the vessel actually knew the suspect's first name. I guess he'd seen him around or has some other kind of knowledge of him. So we're able to convey that to the Detective Bureau. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any other evidence, but we have very good leads on that. So I'll follow up with the detective and see if we got any things for that for any future meetings.
And you lost some Garmin's, right? Did you have a break-in when I reached out to you? You had some Garmin's?
That was the month before.
It was the month before.
We haven't had any.
So I actually made a call the other day, and I wanted to return a call and have a representative of Garmin join us, so we could all complain and tell them how they have. So it's really quite serious. I'm hoping he's going to come this one. To see if we can figure out how to make them less attractive. Basically, we tell them everybody's buying Raytheon and Verona, so
Yeah.
hopefully that does it.
Yeah.
So now give us, yes, please, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we had a Garmin go missing, and you can order from the company something that says that it's pin protected, just as a deterrent to put on the outside. It's a little sticker that says it's branded Garmin.
So I can let the sergeant respond to that. My concern with that is this is a crime of opportunity. It's usually dark, etc. I'm not sure anybody's taking the time to read that. I'm hoping that the message makes its way to them. There's just simply no value in those screens. But
Unfortunately, they have a way to override those pins. I would say 1,000% the best way to protect your garments is to bolt them in. You bolt them in, they realize they're bolted in, and they will leave it alone. They want it in and out quick. That is the 100% best way. Is if you bolt them in, then that is the best way to save any electronics you have.
there's nothing more frustrating to get on your fishing boat and find your electronics going. Thank you. So, formal presentation. This is really cool.
I'm sorry, anybody doesn't know, I'm Sergeant Travis Linnea. I'm the supervisor of the Fort Lauderdale Police Marine Unit.
Sorry.
Obviously, this is Chief Schultz right here, Major Selfo, Captain Moss, and Officer Johnson. Officer Johnson's on the Marine Unit with me. I decided to put this presentation together just because I get some questions here and other places about who's this officer, what do you guys do, what's between you and code, and what kind of boats do you have, and those kind of things. So I thought it'd be a good presentation to have so people can just kind of see us on the water all the time, see different officers all the time. You may talk to someone on the phone, and you see a name, you get their name, but you maybe don't meet them in person. And I thought it'd be a good way just to kind of introduce ourselves, and I think it's kind of like pretty long overdue that we've done this. So I thought that was a good idea. Next slide. These are the boats that we currently have in the fleet. We have two 10-meter, about 33 feet Brunswick Impact with cabins on them. We have three 10-meter Brunswick Impact with center consoles, three 8.5-meter Brunswick center console, one 7-foot Boston Whaler Outrage, and one John boat. This is a picture of the cabin boat. The sides, if you're wondering, are foam over air. So there's air in the inside, and then there's foam on the outside. So we can, when we do a traffic stop on a boat, you know, put fenders out. Those act as like our fenders. This boat and the other boat is powered by twin 400 horsepower Mercury Verados, has FLIR among other things, and it's air conditioned. This is the center console boat, same the 10-meter. This has the same size. It has twin 350 horsepower Verados. And we do have one boat that some of you know has the 300 horsepower Cox diesel engines on them, and those boats are equipped with FLIR, and we have one has radar on it. There's the 8.5 foot Brunswick Impact, has twin 300 horsepower Verados, radar, and they have two of these boats have night vision cameras on them. And there's our we have one rib, so just air filled, doesn't have the D-collar on it, and it has twin 250 horsepower Yamahas and also has a night vision camera. There's a picture of the Whaler. It's actually a 1996 Whaler Outrage, but it does have a new power. It does have a pretty new Yamaha 150 horsepower, and we have a single 15-foot John boat with a 15 horsepower Mercury on it. This is going to be coming next week. This is our shallow draft connector rescue boat. What this boat will do for us is we'll be able to get in the skinniest, smallest of waters with it. It also, as you can see, the diver on the bottom and the person on top, it has a recovery system on it where you can actually put people, whether they're ambulatory, not ambulatory, whether they're unfortunately deceased or anything, you put them in that, and you can pull them in very easily onto the deck of the boat. It's really a great system. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to get one of these boats. This boat can go in real skinny water and get under these super low bridges. You could fit, it's only a 16-foot boat, but you could put like 14 people on this thing. Next slide. And you can see a couple more pictures. You can see on the bottom there, all the people that are on that boat. Whereas if you had another, like our 15-foot John boat, you could put 3 people on it. That's the most you can put on it. These boats also, if you have several of these boats, they're called connector boats because you can actually connect them together. You can make a long 8-boat train. You could put them in side by side. You could put them in a square and have like a dive area that you can protect. So they're really great boats. The Sheriff's Department does have one. The Sheriff's Fire Department has a few. So with us, hopefully we're going to get another one next year. So with us and with the Sheriff's Department, if we ever had a big incident, we'll be able to use those boats and all work together as a team. These are just the hours we typically work. These obviously are subject to change all the time. And we do have the MLIGHT grant, which the officers utilize to work at night. But our normal hours are all, of course, 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you need to reach us, and I just want to put that out, anybody watching on YouTube, anything, if it's an emergency, call 911. If it's you need us immediately, but it's not an emergency, you can call the dispatch non-emergency number. You can call us on VHF. You can also call our office at 954-828-5440, and you can reach us there. One of the officers always takes out a cell phone with him if nobody's in the office, so we can answer that call. A lot of people, if you Google Marine Unit, you'll get our number. We do get a lot of calls from people that are not actually in Fort Lauderdale, but if you Google it, you'll get it. Our phone rings all the time. A lot of our calls for service go by phone, not by someone calling dispatch. But we always have a VHF in the office. All the boats have VHFs. Of course, if it's an emergency, please call 911. And if it's an emergency. If not, the dispatcher can get us by air and wherever we are, and we can respond anywhere. Next slide. Here's a picture of the guys. So our staffing is myself, one sergeant. We currently have 7 officers. Like I said, we work, regular 40 hours a week. We have overtime. We have, as you know, we work special events. Last year, we responded to 930 incidents, and we conducted 575 traffic stops on the waterway. Next slide, please. And I'll just introduce the guy. Here's me. I've been with Fort Lauderdale Police Department for 16 years. I have 24 total as a law enforcement officer. See down the line. I'm a licensed boat captain. I was a field training officer and a U.S. Army veteran. This is by seniority besides me. So Officer Tom Stenger is the most senior officer there. Who's been, by what I mean by that, he's been on the Marine Unit the longest. 18 years of service. He's a master dive, certified as far as you can get. I don't know all the terms for diving. He's as certified as you can get for diving. He's a tactical bike platoon. He's also licensed as a boat captain. He's a Navy and Coast Guard veteran as well. Officer Diana Rose, she's been on for 20 years. She's been in the Marine for a couple of years. She's been in street crimes, detective bureau, field training officer, tactical bike platoon. and she is also dive certified. Officer Rudy Oliva, he's been in for 18 years. He's been in Marine for about a year and a half. He was in street crimes as well, a long time in patrol, field training officer. He's also a defensive tactics instructor, and he's also a licensed boat captain. Officer Chris Troiano, he's been on for 16 years. He was in forever for street crimes, FBI gang task force, you name it in that. He's also on SWAT for 10 years. He's a sniper in SWAT. He's a licensed boat captain as well, and a Coast Guard veteran. Officer Mark Johnson, who's sitting right here, he's been on for 18 years. He's been in the Marine for 10 in patrol. He was a field training officer for a long time and also licensed boat captain. Two of our newer guys, Officer Andrew Mick, he's been on for 9.5 years. He spent 3 of it on mounted patrol, 5 in patrol. And then our newest member has only been here for 2 days.
How do you write that on the slide?
Yeah, so yeah, he's been new. So he's been in patrol a long time. He did spend a little bit of time in the nighttime economy unit when we had that. He's a field training officer, and he's also an instructor for training for firearms, DT, everything. He's on the SWAT team currently, and he's a sniper on the SWAT team.
Last 2 days.
This is kind of like a Venn diagram of us and code enforcement. So some of the things that this is not limited to what we respond to, but just highlighted. Obviously, any crimes in the waterway, burglaries, thefts, accidents. We do traffic enforcement, fires, arsons, domestic disturbances, migrant landings. We do the anchored vessel violations, derelict, abandoned. We do the MSD checks, anchor lights, all those things. We do livery inspections on the rental boats, the rental jet skis, and of course any medical emergencies. That's our kind of main what we do. If you want to picture us, if you see a patrol car patrolling the neighborhood and they're answering calls for service, doing all stuff, that is what we do. We just do it on a boat. Is the main thing that we do. That's the easiest way I tell people kind of what our job is we're patrol on the water. If it happens on the water, no matter what kind of crime it is, we respond to it. And this code enforcement, I got this from Marco, so I didn't want to just put what they did. We actually got this from Marco. They do more of the dock stuff. We do more of the anchored things. They do more of the dock violations, the derelict, abandoned, sunken, unsightly, oversized, live aboards, not permitted area, commercial vessel residence zone, the seawalls, the docks, the work without permits. This is like kind of like the difference. If you want to picture like boats that are anchored, we will handle that. We support each other, of course. But the anchored boats is more of our wheelhouse. If there's like a violation of a boat, and they're more of the boat that's on a dock. Next slide. And here's, they wanted us to include this slide for their contact information for code enforcement. So you have their emails, the phone numbers, everything for Marco and Manny, who's back now. He went to the county for a while, now he's back with us. And they're usually on the boat every Wednesday. Those guys will be out on their boat almost every Wednesday. Next slide. That should be it. Anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
Has there been any discussion of shift after 5 p.m. on Friday or Saturdays? Yes, it's crazy.
Yeah, we had lots of discussions. Lots of discussions with it.
Patrol cars went in at 5, we'd have a little trouble in the city.
That's true. Yes, absolutely. And I from day one, I knew that was something I want to improve on. We used to have later hours. Through the years, various chiefs have changed that. Waterways are not a Monday through Friday business hours event. In fact, when I'm out on the waterways, I find them much more packed 5 and on. People take their boats to dinner and parties, and yes. So no, we are definitely going to do that as soon as I can get some staffing up. We're focusing on getting our vacancies filled. You don't even know this yet, but as of today, we're down to 16. So that's fantastic. When I started in November, we were at 50 vacancies, and I've been really focusing on filling those. So once we get to full staffing, we're going to look at staffing holistically throughout the department. It is absolutely my goal, and Travis knows this, to get them enough officers to have 2 full shifts and really cover those evening hours, because that's when I see the majority of the voting is happening. So a lot of times when we get some of emergency calls as well, and then BSO or one of the other agencies have to take those calls. And then if it's real bad, we end up having to call people out. So I'm working on it. Thank you. You're welcome.
You guys got any questions?
So, just out of curiosity, so Chief said you're getting vacancies filled. That sounds great because I do remember when you had a big issue with that. So, what do you need? We've talked about personnel, equipment. You're still short of equipment.
I mean, it's just the normal. I would say we're short of equipment. As if I stand right now. We are working towards improving our equipment, I'll say, and that's something that as a department we are working towards. I wouldn't say we're short now. It's just, we're actually the two 8.5 meter boats. Those boats are actually, we just finished the bid and they're both going to get new engines. The bid closed and they're both going to get new engines. So that's going to be a big help because those boats have a lot of hours on them. And hopefully we'll continue with the cycle of replacing engines. That's probably the biggest thing right now is replacing engines. But I think we're on a good trend towards that right now. So everybody's working towards it. Fortunately, we have a good mechanic right now, and we have very handy guys to keep everything rolling. So I think we're in a good place right now. If we can keep the trend moving forward, then I think we'll be good.
It's a crazy conversation for Carl and Susan. There have been times where the sergeant has mentioned that they've had boats offline because they simply didn't have the money available for additional motors, etc. I have a problem with that, and if we hear it again, I'm gonna knock on the door because it's tough enough allocating the personnel, but you got to have the equipment that these guys need. So you got a lot of people listening to you tonight.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot now as long as we keep doing what we're doing. Those diesel engines, they were branded to us from that company. That really helped us because that took that boat out of that mix for need a replacement. Those boats were all bought within like 2 years of each other. So you had 8 boats coming at the same time. So they're all coming into maturity where they need engines almost at the same time. That's tough just to spend that kind of money on every single boat. But I think we're, with these 2 boats getting it, and then if we keep that trend, I think we'll be actually in a very good spot.
So if you happen to find a car with drugs in it, you can take the car, right, and sell the car and buy a boat with it, right? Not how that works.
Well, I mean,
I thought you meant a boat. And then we could take the boat.
Because it was used for the sale of drugs, and you sell the car, and that's not the way. This was a wonderful presentation. Any other questions, please, for our dear friend Sergeant O'Neill? Thank you.
I have
Yes, would you like to give-
Miami has a derelict vessel officer that's specific. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Because they tag the boats. He takes the GPS locations. He does a lot, and they are on them all the time. So it reduces the number because they're diligent about it. I would say harassment. That would be the wrong word. And I'll get his contact because you might have a conversation where he might give you some pointers that would help.
yeah, and I believe me, I will talk to anybody. I would say that we are on top of the derelict vessels that are anchored in the city. The problem we have is most of the vessels are what they call at risk. So which means that they're not actually derelict, they're at risk of being derelict. So to get them into the derelict arena, they have to have 3 at-risk tickets that are adjudicated. And to get 3 at-risk tickets adjudicated, it takes a time. So we give him a ticket, and then we wait a month. He still has that same issue. Give him another ticket, wait a month, and then to get those adjudicated through the court system, it just takes a time to do that. Once we get those adjudicated, then we can move forward the derelict, if they're not already obviously derelict. But my guys are definitely on top of we spend a lot of our time on those anchor vessels, and we do everything that's within our power that we can.
I totally believe what the one question I had about the law and the 45 days. Okay, the boat's there over 45 days. Now you can do something. What do you do?
I mean, I have to see what it is, but it's probably a citation. The person would probably get a citation, and if you get one of those every single day, then it's going to build up quick.
And then I mean, it ultimately becomes yours, and then you have to dispose of it.
Yeah, and that'll be obviously, they'd have to talk to this guy over here and
So much,
John.
I think it's a good plan, and I think you should use it. But I think it's also going to put burden on what you do
I don't
after the 45.
We have one boat that just left voluntarily because literally my guys went out there and every time he drug his anchor, he got a ticket. Every time his nav light or his
And he did
anchor
a
light
lot.
was, he got 8 tickets. And he said, "Well, I had enough. Let me come up with the money to move this boat out of here." And he moved it yesterday. Because my guys will stay on top of these people. You know, there was a boat in Lake Sylvia that went in, and the guy moved it because we were just hammering him with tickets. And the guy lived way up in the Panhandle. And we called him. We get in touch with him, and we say, "Hey, we're going to be mailing you tickets. You better do something with this."
In California, a lot of the Marine Patrol can wire the through valves just shut with a lead seal, and then they put dye tablets in there. And that way, if they are pumping, it leaves a big loop. Are you familiar with those programs? Have we ever looked at those programs?
So what we do is we can do MSD checks, so we can go on board and we can put the dye tabs in their system and see if it comes out. And we do that.
You can't wire the whole.
No, you want to. But if the Y valve has to be closed and has to be wired shut, so that's 2 different statutes. So even if it's closed, the valve's closed, but the wire is not attached, they can be charged with that. They got both, they can be charged with both. You know, we do it quite frequently to those boats. A lot of times though, and unfortunately, like that Sea Ray with those 2 guys, that father and son out there on it. I mean, I'm sure they're probably dumping, probably are. But we go on there, we do MSD check.
5-gallon bucket.
I know, and the valve is closed. He's got it cinched down. And that's something like that Civic boat, that 45-day thing would be helpful. Because what would happen is he would get tired of getting a ticket, and he would say, "Let me do something with this."
The point Mitch made, the ticket should have some teeth to it.
But even if listen,
33 tickets.
but if it's $100, a guy like that, $100 every day, that's gonna wreck quick. That's gonna wreck it real quick. You know. Yeah.
Or withhold his driver's license if.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't know intimate enough to know what the consequences are.
Any other questions for Sergeant O'Neill? Yes.
It's without sounding like Big Brother. What about like CCTVs? I mean, you see them on highways. I mean, in certain areas, or is that overreach, or is there grants or funding for that?
I mean, most of that's gonna be people's private property. There's not a whole lot of public property that the city owns that we could probably put one up. I mean, it's something.
Well, I'm just thinking in Anchorage,
Beyond me
you
working
can,
for that.
if you have like, a float and it's up with a solar panel, even with you're being watched, I don't know if that helps as a deterrent, or I think it's, in other words, I'm just trying to get to a situation, something that's proactive, no hunting, no trespassing, visual cues, 80% of our information is visual, so yes, sir.
So the surveillance system that the city currently has continues to grow.
Yeah.
He's absolutely correct though. On the waterways, a lot less public property where we could actually post a camera because all the cameras need a power supply as well. But we're working on it because we need that too. It really helps us during very busy times, during the boat show, during the air show, any holiday weekend. We would love to have intercoastal coverage. So that's part of our plan to look at it wherever we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I can, give you an
Captain Dot Connolly.
Connolly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We have a camera that looks at the New River Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I get funding to monitor it from Fine. Mhm. And we actually have it on where water taxi used to be. That's where we keep that. We just asked the owner if we could plug in.
So we have a program where you
And
can
we go live with
we
it
can
so
go
anybody
into
can
that.
see it.
Yeah, we have a program, we can link her up. If you guys get her information, we can link you up, and if you're willing to share that feed, we can.
It's live now on YouTube. You can get.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's just a matter like if the homeowners wanted that on the lake, all they have to do is stick a pole in their yard and make you have access to it.
Okay. Anybody else? That was truly exceptional. I cannot thank you enough. And joined us. That's a tremendous sign of support. Thank you, guys. If you don't mind hanging around for a few minutes, I'm going to guarantee you haven't seen this.
That brings us to Captain Brendan McDonald. I met Brendan, Port Everglades Harbor Safety Committee, and he did a presentation on navigating large ships. Here, please help us out. So we talk about large ships. Let me clarify. So I've tried to explain it to Brendan real quickly, but I didn't get the picture. We've shown to you guys ad nauseum videos. Come on, man. Ad nauseum videos of large ships navigating the river. A large ship navigating the river for us is 112, 150 feet, etc. We're going to show you something different. Brendan is, I'm going to embarrass him just a little bit. This is Brendan McDonald, managing pilot for Port Everglades Pilots Association. Graduated from Maine Maritime Academy in 2009, took a job in the oil field as a captain. 2 years later, took another position as a deck officer on a drill ship. 2016, scored the highest on the pilot exam for Port Everglades, and was awarded the opening to become a deputy pilot. Currently, his goals are to grow ship business inside the port. To do this, Port Everglades needs to catch up to neighboring ports' ship size. And we could talk about that as well. But one of the takeaways from this, again, is that we've talked about how difficult it is to be seen, to make sure the safe navigation on the river. Brendan is doing it from 1,000-foot boats. Let me just put a pitch in for him here. The Port Everglades Pilots Association, you guys are all familiar with pilots. It sounds like there's a lot of guys doing it. It's not. This is the managing co-pilot of the organization. There's only a handful of people that qualified to do this. As a matter of fact, if I read this properly, a deputy pilot is required to complete a training program that lasts 2.5 years. During this time, they'll ride, observe, and handle thousands of ships. So this is a guy who's been there. He's seen it all. It's interesting because I didn't know this. All foreign flag and certain U.S. flagships with a draft of 7 feet or greater require state licensed pilot. There's a good reason, and one of the things we talked about with Brendan when he did his presentation to the Port Everglades Harbor Safety Committee is what happens if one of these big ships goes cockeyed in the canal like Lake Suez in Suez Canal. You see the sergeant smiling because it's no doubt a conversation he had. We all talked about it recently as well. It was brought up some similar concerns on safety, etc. We're talking about the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show coming up. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Brendan, but I'm going to ask if we put up slide number 3, please, and I'm going to pass these around, and I'm just going to show you for a second what we're talking about. So that, before Brendan does his slides, so this is a cruise ship, typical Oasis in the Seas, 1,100 feet. What's sitting in front of it is my poorly illustrated way of demonstrating. That's a 112-foot Westport. That's a big boat, guys, but you can't even see it from this guy. So we have a whole nother world that goes on beside a new river that happens on the Intercoastal every day, etc. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Brendan. Thank you for joining us. Will you put Brendan's slides up, please?
I'll leave this one for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's 112 feet. We're actually, this is the Oasis of the Sea. She's 1184 by 154. This Sunday, I'm actually flying up to Baltimore. We're going to be simulating to bring in 1200 by 170. We're going bigger than that. That's about the size of a tugboat, 100 feet. And so we're actually going to be going bigger to catch up, that's what he's saying, to catch up with neighboring ports. Because right now, we're losing business in the port because the COVID reallocated the 15,000 TEU container ships, which is the 1,200 by 170. Miami does them, Jacksonville does them. We don't, so we get passed over. So that's what we're trying to do is catch up. So our ship size is only getting bigger, and as everybody has known, we're probably never going to see the dredge project. So the channel's going to stay the same size. We're going to need to adapt with a bigger economy scale. But yeah, go ahead.
So the channel is 45 feet right now?
42.
42 feet.
45 feet in the outer bar, 42 feet in the shore.
So that's going to present problems for you going forward?
We do tide windows, anything over 40 feet will require 1 foot of tide. And then we'll do ships, like we brought one in a month or so ago that was 41 feet, 11 inches, and we just brought it in on 1 foot of tide. So essentially stiffen the bottom the entire way.
Here's your slides.
You got it.
And, by the way, guys, sorry for our weeks. We don't mean to. So, well, leave the pile station. They know what I mean. So I'm going to talk about small boat traffic. I am familiar with the New River boat traffic. I've ridden with Cape Ann Towing a lot. So I am familiar with the New River and what those guys go through. And it's very similar. Essentially it's weekend warriors, and you're going to kind of see from my perspective, which is more the commercial eye, and I'll get into a lot of legalities that we think about. We're kind of like mariners / lawyers as we're navigating the ships. When you hear us blast one long whistle, we know that that's an illegal signal in the rules of the road. However, it's a we're coming down signal. And then when you hear 5 short, there is a whole, in the coal regs, if you read the fine print, in order for me to sound 5 short, I need to be acting. So I'm already maneuvering out of a boat's way. And unfortunately, perspective is different from them to me, and we're gonna see that. They may think, why is he blasting his whistle? There's plenty of room. I already don't see it. I've lost complete sight, and I just give a prayer and hope that you pop out by the bridgeway. I'm also going to talk about Rule 9 in the coal regs, which is narrow channel. You can go to the next slide. So Rule 9 talks about how any vessel less than 20 meters in length or a sailing vessel should not impede the passage of a vessel that can only navigate safely in the narrow channel. Port everplanes. Ship. That's us. So any small vessel must stay to that which lays on their starboard side. However, we have security zones, so that makes it difficult. We just tell everybody to go to the east. By the rocks, ride the rocks, you're safe, you're fine. If you collide with us, or we have a collision, I'm clear because of this. You're not. The boats aren't. And you don't want these nasty black paint on your nice shiny white hulls. So you're gonna do a lot more damage to yourself than me. If you try to come after, I know everybody's so happy these days, but we're protected under coal regs. I mean, it's just that simple. I can only navigate within that channel, and you can navigate outside the channel, and I'll have electronics and everything that I have on board to prove it. Next slide. Can anybody spot the boat? As you can see, under this forward crane, there's a sailing mast.
Right in front of the boat.
Oh my God. Right in front of the boat.
And, nope, I'm a little to the left, underneath, yep, right there. He did a zigzag and then was gonna go down the right side and then was like, oh my God, I gotta go starboard. And then, or port to port, and then came back around, turned to starboard, and I lost sight of him. Well, I mean, luckily he had masts, but if that was a pontoon boat or a little boat, or, I wouldn't have seen him. And this is a small ship. This is 450 feet. That's small for us. Next slide. You can spot the boat. Right in the middle of the channel, it's another sailboat. Whoa, unfortunately. But look at the wind on the anemometer reading, 65 knots. And look at the direction on the beam. Right now I'm full ahead sea speed RPM. That's turning for 22 knots on this cruise ship. And our rule is angler speed. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ground the cruise ship to not hit you. I would rather not shut down South Florida, which has its other implications of oil hub of South Florida, yachting mecca of the world. If I shut down that channel right there, I shut down the New River and I shut down fuel for South Florida.
Can you explain why you can't put the brakes on?
So that ship has a gross tonnage of about 130,000 gross tons. On full sea speed RPM, if I try to stop 65 knots, she has 11,000 horsepower bow thrusters, 11,000 horsepower stern thrusters. They're rated for about 20 knots of wind on the beam. I'm gonna go wipe out Nova Southeast University and then block the Southport Channel and just simply try to recover. But my thing is I was already doing about 8 knots. I was just angling speed. The more speed I got, I can bring off the angle and out we go. The worst that would have happened to him is he would have bounced down the side. Next. Can you spot the boat?
That's crazy.
This is I was asked to put this together, and this was just a random picture I took from a random Saturday. I have 15 other partners that have hundreds of these pictures. This cruise ship's supposed to have a 100-yard security zone around it, but because 100 yards is width of that channel, it's a ways out. But this guy, I need to go port to port. He puts himself here. Weekend warriors, man, they're probably drunk, drinking, having a blast, and but that's daily what we go through. So I'm docking. Beer can.
Just wow. It's perfect.
Coming into that dock right there, you can see the line handlers trucks.
Yeah.
Those 2 cranes will go midship on the ship right there, probably about that first container rack that you're seeing. And he's just, I don't even know.
He was late for dinner.
First of all, it's no wake zone. Secondly, he's, I can't explain it. There is 500 feet of channel on my port side, and this is another thing. This one's kind of hard to explain, but we deal with this a lot. So if you see the tugboat, I'm leaving, so I'm backing up, and you see the tugboat folded back alongside. He's supposed to be out at a 90 to assist me, pulling or pushing or pulling. He can't because this guy just kept coming. I mean, yeah, we tell him to stick to the east, and we make it work because I can, it's a brief moment in time, but people don't understand when you're driving a boat, you can stop. A ways away, you can stop, let the danger go by, and then you can proceed. If you notice, and if you really think about it, a lot of boats and boaters, they want to cross the bow. They put the hammer down, they go faster, when really if you want to open up that closest point of approach, try pulling back on a little RPM, and it'll open up naturally. It may take you 5 more minutes, but you avoid these close call situations. And then he's just now got to deal with the other guy that's barreling down too, the other boat. I mean, it's just unnecessary, that little bit of space with all these vessels operating in one spot. This one, I believe this is you guys, FLPD. He broke down, and
Yeah, I'm the one that towed that one out.
he threw his anchor out.
Yeah, and I'm gonna stay in the middle of the channel.
I'm on a cruise ship about to leave. Then he just throws his anchor out. I'm broken down, and this causes an economic delay for the cruise ships because they are tight on schedule. They need to get out, steam, burn fuel. I believe it took 30, 45 minutes to get. And he refused to be. He wanted to get. He's like, "Oh, I can fix it. I can fix it." I believe is what it was, and he never got it up and running. And we actually need all that room to breast off, get an angle to make a 90-degree turn out the channel. Thank you guys for that. I mean, that's just a nightmare.
It's just overheating too. I don't care. About to be dead.
It costs the cruise ship industry tens of thousands of dollars every 10, 20 minutes they're delayed. It's insane to think about, but it's true because they have to push that much faster to get to the next port, and it's unfortunate. This was a holiday. I call it Parting the White Sea. This freaks out every single ship captain I'm on board with. They love coming to Port Everglades because We are very efficient with cargo, very efficient with stores. We have a nice seaman center, and everything they want, if they want to go have a beer or something because they've been out to sea for months or whatever, everything's right there. But they hate coming into Port Everglades because of all the boats. They hate it. A lot of them are not from here. They're Russian or Ukrainian or car carriers are Chinese, bulkers are Chinese, cruise ship captains. I mean, they're kind of used to it. But you should hear the communications of the guy on the bow there. You kind of see him on the starboard bow. He's just boats on the bow. You know, it's just like you can't report anything. There's nothing they're doing wrong, except I guarantee you if I tried to hail any one of them, none of them would come up on the radio.
No, it's not.
Okay, this was another thing. This was it's probably 985 by 131 or 141. It's, to be honest with you, not that big of a ship compared to what we're doing nowadays. The legal requirement for line of sight for us is 1,500 feet or 2 ship lengths, whichever is less. This ship is 985, so it'd be 1,500 feet. I have not even reached the finger pier yet with the bow, and I can't see past the knuckle, which is 1,300 feet long. That bursts about 1,300 feet. And I can't see either side of I can't see the channel width. You're probably like, how do you even do this? It's one of those things where you just kind of know where you are. It's the only way I can explain it. I have my points. I know I'm in the middle, but I don't know if a boat's crossing my bow. I don't know who's coming up along my side. That's why I said I give a prayer, and I hope that I can see them when they pass the bridgeway. And then to top it all off, I have to bypass a car carrier in 29, which shrinks my channel width by 106 feet. So I took 500 feet, 400 feet. I'm 131 wide. Plus, you can see all the boats down there coming and going. I mean, it's tight. And bear in mind, we're going bigger. So, the same kind of deal, different ship. I just want to let you guys see like my field of vision. I'm standing in the middle of the ship, and I just can't see anything. So, I would say if you could pass word, you just have people monitor the radio so that way because I'm hailing. You know, if I see a boat come, you know, we try to get BSO, we try to get FLPD to help us, but there's such departments that are spread very thin to also play escort for ships. And one of the top busiest ports in the world, I think we're ranked 38th in the world. We're top 15 or 10 in the country. I think we're top 10 in the country for just ship volume. We do the most ships in Florida. We average almost 9,000 ships a year, which is, it blows any other port in Florida out of the water. We do 30% more than Miami. We definitely do more than Jacksonville, Tampa, and Canaveral. I mean, we do a lot of ship movements. So yeah. Another one, we just really just can't see where we're going, and you can see all the boats coming and going, and like I said, we go numb to the White Sea. We just need to move the ship. We're in a narrow channel, and we're operating legally, you know. Oh, this is the video that wouldn't play. I don't know if it can play. Oh, there it goes. This is an inbound tanker on a holiday air show. This is the air show. There it is. They went quick with the time lapse. But yeah, so the Air and Sea Show, mini season, 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day. They're just nightmare. I pray that don't work. I'm just like, but yeah, so that's my presentation. I've also done a lot of time on the New River with Courtney with Cape Ann Towing. I do know that he runs into issues with, and we do too. We do it with the 112, 120 Westports or 150-foot yachts. When somebody sees a ship or them towing a yacht through the New River or us down the ICW, people just like to stop, turn beam to the channel, and just stay there. Courtney sees it on the New River, and so does Jim with Steel Towing and Towboat US. They see them coming, they get all frazzled, and they slam the boat in reverse and just stop. They get into a worse spot than if they were on the radio, monitoring the radio, and then we can come up with a passing arrangement. So that's one of the biggest things. It's just nobody's on the radio. That's what I think you wanted to mention with the New River. That's one of the biggest gripes is people just not listening. And on the New River, it's Channel 9. That's for the bridges. They just stop instead of just listening and making a passing arrangement.
Yeah, no, it's an ongoing issue, and I don't care how much signage you put up.
And it's it's uneducation. Like you can have a driver's license and go out and buy a boat. Next year, you're on the water the next day.
Yep.
So I said when we did the Harbor Safety Committee, I go, this is an industry, unfortunately, that education will probably touch 2%, maybe if that, maybe 1%, and the rest of the 99% just won't just be another day at the office.
My introduction to boating years ago was going to a small boat show up in Connecticut, and to be a boater, you had to pay $149 a month. That's all you needed to know, because that was your monthly payment.
Yeah.
And you need nothing more than that. Anybody have questions for Brendan? This is a phenomenal presentation. Anybody whatsoever? Feel free to ask anything.
Yeah, it pops into my head. It's 80% of information is visual. And, again, I don't know if it's a solution. I try to be solution oriented. You have lots of pilots. Channel 16, Channel 16, Channel 9, Channel 16, Channel 9. You got to make a campaign out of it, whatever it takes. What's with the Channel 16, Channel 9? Turn your effing radio on, would you please?
I get it, but you read the sign, and then how many people actually go up and go like that?
Well, it's the same.
It's a campaign, but
I've always felt that if it's bigger than you are, stay out of its way. If it's really, really bigger than you are, absolutely stay out of its way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like we don't navigate on law tonnages. We navigate according to the rules of the road.
Yeah, I get it. Your code regs are very succinct and specific. You said you're in the channel. Yeah.
Yeah, the board may like to receive I get on Facebook, I guess, from Sam. He sends out quite a number of pictures from the most recent one, I think, was the banana boat last week or something. And how could the rest of the board pick that up?
So we actually have an Instagram page, whatever at Port Everglades pilots. If you search it.
So they can. So what Sam is doing is just posting it on Facebook.
He's doing his own, and we have a Facebook page too. Sam does like his own whenever he goes out and he'll record, and he tries to give a lot of just education for the profession, and it's a cool job, so he just likes to share it. He does a lot with politicians, so he love it. That sort of thing. But we do have a Facebook page. I'm gonna die too. And an Instagram page. We have a Facebook page and Instagram page.
Just written on the pilot boats for them. Inspired me to climb up the ladder.
It gets sketchy. He has one picture of the boarding. I think the ship must have been rolling 20, 25 degrees, and the ladder was going up and down maybe. I forgot how far, but he was able to step. It was probably a 21 rung ladder. He was able to step on the third rung, and the ship just took off.
Have you folks ever seen? They're not the easiest ladders to climb up either. So this was wonderful. Thank you. I hope you don't mind. We're going to stay in touch with you, and we may ask you to come another time. But you're an integral part of this community, and we so appreciate it. And please thank the rest of your team.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay, so there's a reason we're here. We're going to let the police leave and the rest of the folks. Sean, you leaving too?
I'm mostly.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. How are you? Thanks. So that was great stuff, but there's a reason actually we're here more than just to educate ourselves. We actually have to conduct some business, and we have folks that have been waiting for us. So, if the office, if anybody wishes to leave, feel free. We're extremely thankful you joined us, and let us get on to 1240 Bayview Drive. 1240 Bayview Drive is Andrew Shine, I believe.
Yes. And is here the proper place?
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry, we don't have a
That's okay.
formal thing, but you come here, you go wherever
I'm
you
dressed
want.
formal, but I'm not. I'm
You
not
are
that
always
formal.
dressed formal, and we appreciate it.
Normally, I'm a bit informal. We'll see here.
That's the second one.
So again, this is 1240 Bayview Drive, and this is Attorney Andrew Sheen. Is it Sheen or Shine?
Shine.
I should know.
Whatever. Good evening, Andrew Shine, here representing the property owner, and I have Rick Laheka, the owner, with me here. This is a much simpler one than the last. I don't know who was on the board last time I came here, but this is a much simpler one, and it's not on the New River. This property is on Seminole Lake, Bayview Drive. This is a far aerial of the property. Next slide, please. This is a close-up aerial of the property. As you can see, there are a lot of boats in this lake here. This lake is sometimes used as a yacht turnaround spot, where folks that come in here have to, the wide end there is used often for that. But this is the property, and we're asking for a boat lift at 36 feet measured from the property line. Go to the next slide. The waterway width varies somewhere between 200 and 280 feet, depending on where you measure it from. So we're going from about 10%, using an average of 250, we're going from about 10% of the width of the waterway to 14.4% the width of the waterway. So only a 4.4% request. You can see that there are a lot of large boats. There's a 60, 70 foot catamaran, 2 houses down, and his boat is 40 feet. So it's a lift 36 feet out. And in order to not hit the dock, either backing in or going forward, we need it to be about 11 feet away from the dock. And if you look down, these property lines aren't fully accurate. But a lot of folks have some part of their dock within their property line, some part not within their property line. And since these measurements are done from the property line instead of from the dock, where your property line lines up really affects how far into the waterway you can go. So his property line, the dock is fully outside of it. Doesn't get the advantage that some other property owners have, but again, we're only asking for 36 feet here. Next slide. We do have letters of support. I have copies, and they're in this presentation if you'd like me to hand them out as well. But we do have letters of support from the immediate neighbors. The other ones we did reach out to. How many did we reach out to?
Quite a few other ones. I just don't know them that well, but I was more worried about my immediate ones. Those are the ones I really concentrated on getting signatures from.
And we didn't hear anything negative from anyone else either. If you want to quickly go through the next 3 slides, they're just the support letters. And again, if you'd like copies, I do have them here. That's the request, and I do have a second part of the presentation that I don't think is really relevant to this application. But Mr. Dunkel approached me before this hearing and brought up what he thought was an issue on this. So I do want to do this part of the presentation. Again, it doesn't really have to do with this application. What we're asking for is the 11-foot distance waiver into the waterway. But I think Mr. Dunkel is going to bring it up, so I'd like to discuss it at least. This is in the accessory structures part of the code. And 4719.1 is the general, applies to accessory structures in general. So this part of the code has things like boat lifts and mooring piles and docks and all that. It also has carports, sheds, porches, mechanical equipment, and it's all encompassing in this section. So this specific section here says no accessory structure use may be made within the required yard specified by the zoning district where the development site is located. So if you have a house, you can't put a shed in your required side yard. You can't put a carport in your required side yard unless you meet other requirements. If you go to the next slide, actually go one more slide, please. The specific verbiage in the mooring pile docks, the waterway use, the verbiage is very different in this code. So it says, for example, I'm sure we all know this, no watercraft shall be docked adjacent to property such that it causes it to extend behind the side setback line as extended into the waterway. So it's different than how the normal accessory structures where you can't have it in your yards. Here, this section specifically applies to it. It says as extended into the waterway. Can you go one slide up? And this is important. Differentiating this is important not just for this application, but in general. So mooring devices and mooring structures, docks, boat lifts, marginal docks, seawalls, finger piers. I'll let Mr. Dunkel speak to his interpretation, but his interpretation, as I understand, is that since the first section says you can't have any accessory structures within your side yards, doesn't say side yards in the extended waterway, just as side yards. It's my understanding that his interpretation means you can't have any accessory structures, including all of the waterway ones, in your side yards. I don't think that's a proper reading because that would mean almost every single dock, property line to property line docks, almost every single one of those wouldn't be allowed. No finger piers, no mooring piles within side yard setbacks. There would be, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, maybe 10,000 different violations of this in the city. Most people have property line to property line dock. So again, this does not have to do with this application. We're only requesting the waiver into the distance into the waterway. But I'm just bringing this up because Mr. Dunkel approached me before the hearing and mentioned that he was going to request that we defer it because of this. And I don't feel comfortable doing that because we just don't agree with how that code, how he's interpreting that code. So sorry that I did not want to have to do this presentation. Wanted to really just focus on the application itself, but that's this part.
So why don't we ask Bob to explain his issues, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
And we'll keep this dialogue going.
Absolutely.
Now, reference has been made to marginal docks, which we allow to go from property line to property line. This provision here says no accessory use or structure may be located within a required yard specified by the zoning district where the development site is located unless specifically permitted by the ULDR. What has happened is years ago, Greg Bruton, the zoning administrator, said, marginal dock, that's kind of like a patio. When you can have a patio go from property line to property line. Now, here's where the rub comes in. We've got floating vessel platforms in the side yard setback. And I have seen zoning come along and say, but when you put a boat on there, I'm going to come after you. So what have we accomplished? I'm going to suggest that if the board recommend this waiver, that it be done specifically with the idea in mind that there still is a challenge to be had with regard to the boat lift extending into the side yard setback. I'm going to go one step further. We've heard on a number of occasions this concept that this board just rubber stamps these things.
It's not me.
No, you haven't. Actually, I think that's come from the commissioners.
The commissioner.
Yep. Yes.
Rubber stamp.
Starts
We
with
don't
Trent
have-
Hollis. No.
We don't have a rubber stamp. We have a
So,
rubber
You've been accused of it. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying you've been accused of
You see all these condominiums around that got rubber stamp.
it. Hey, I came down here in '54. It was a much better place to live back then.
Amen.
Anyway, so what are the extraordinary circumstances here? I want the board to stop and think about this. Now, as I read this, what I see here is due to the property's location on Seminole Lake and the proximity to the Intracoastal Waterway, property is greatly affected by tidal influences and storms. Is there any waterway in Fort Lauderdale that isn't affected by that? What makes this such an extraordinary circumstance? That certainly does.
This seems a little inappropriate for this hearing, Mr. Dunkel.
Why? They're here to make recommendations on whether it's extraordinary circumstance. And I do not appreciate you interrupting me when I did not interrupt you. Now, what do you have left? You've got a 36-foot boat lift, and you got 200 feet of water. I'm not sure. I mean, this is up to the board. Y'all have to figure out what the extraordinary circumstances are. That's all I have to say.
And if I may add, there are two big things with this. One is that it is used as a yacht turnaround, and big boats create big waves.
That's a slow. That's an idle speed zone.
And two is that the property line itself is property line. When you measure how far out you can go into the waterway, it's measured from your property line. So it doesn't matter where your dock is, it's measured from the property line. If your dock is outside of your property line, you lose that 5 or 6 feet. If your dock is within your property line, you gain that 5 or 6 feet, because now you can, you're starting from a -6 measurement from the property line. Here, the dock is fully outside of the property line. It's not incredibly uncommon, of course, but that's what he's faced with here. So, and again, we're asking for an 11-foot waiver, which is frankly small in terms of what this board has granted before.
I would ask the board to think in terms of what is extraordinary circumstances, and is extraordinary circumstances judged differently because it's a smaller ask for a waiver. It seems like the extraordinary circumstances have to justify it before you grant. That's all I have to say.
This has been an issue for many years. Is Tyler here? I've told Tyler many times, eliminate the wording extraordinary circumstances and just don't convert it.
There needs to be some standard by which you judge this. Otherwise, it's like anybody that comes along, we get it.
No, you still have a stipulation in the code to require how many feet you can leave it. Extraordinary circumstance doesn't be the reason why you need the extra 5 feet, whatever. It makes us, in my opinion, when you look at the distance here and knowing that it's an idle speed, that we're supposed to believe that there's extraordinary circumstances at a boat at idle speed.
No.
Yeah.
Look, I apologize. We're opening up a dialogue that's a big picture for all of us, and you deal with this all the time too. The extraordinary circumstances, excuse my French, is absolute bullshit. Okay, it is on the majority of waivers that are requested from us. There's no extraordinary circumstances. There's no significant wave action, etc. And with all due respect to you, it's a term that legal has used before to say to sell us. We all know it's not extraordinary. There isn't significant wave action, etc. I think what Bob is saying, and maybe we all get to this point where the applicant simply wants to have a boat lift there, which is a reasonable request. Let's make that the request. And again, we're not passing judgment on you, but that's where we need to be. This extraordinary circumstance thing is nonsense, and I think Bob has a particular bug about it right now. Bob, are there other issues you have with this other than the term extraordinary circumstances?
Well, that and the side yard setbacks.
So, and I understand that. And I guess my question is this a legal issue, a legal challenge that we are not capable of addressing, and should we as a board defer this?
Let me address the extraordinary circumstances first. It's in the code. When this goes to the city commission, that's the standard by which they must judge this. It can then get challenged in circuit court to determine whether there's substantial competent evidence to support the conclusion that it was extraordinary circumstances. So, as much as I may not like that term in the code, that's what we're stuck with. I am working on some different terminology, which would basically, how do I put this? Factors that would be in favor and factors that might be against. We may run into problems on New River using this because everything is always in favor of grant. We got to start looking at the other side, particularly with New River, now that the commission has decided that they didn't want to do the moratorium. So, no, I don't think the argument with regard to extraordinary circumstances is a proper ground for saying, no, we're not going to handle it. I think it's your responsibility.
as far as the side yard setback, we'll let it go forward with the notation that this record will say that there is, in my opinion, a violation. And it very well may be that after the waiver is granted, independent of the side yard setback issue, that they may get to zoning and zoning goes, sorry, we're not going to give you a permit.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. We understand that if this board does make a recommendation and it does get approved by the city commission, this is a separate issue. If we go for building permit, zoning says no, then we have a problem. But the application in front of you is not for that. It's a good plan.
Any,
Living extraordinary circumstances, and under what you're discussing, how can you avoid it from being per item instead of a blanket? The circumstances on this application could be different than extraordinary circumstances.
of course, it's a case by case basis. Andrew, do you happen to have that list of extraordinary circumstances that's been relied on in the past? About 10 or 11.
Maybe more. Yes.
Yeah, you know, highway zones, high speed zones, large wake, things like that. I just don't, personally, I don't see it falling into this category for this particular one. Yeah. Others may see it differently. I'm just voicing what I see. And I'm familiar with that neck of the woods too.
Could just this is just spitballing, but could a hurricane, like a dock or a lift, be better? Could that be something that someone would
Then
use?
doesn't a hurricane affect all properties on the water?
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is a
So, I
general
mean, it's
thing
like,
that-
okay, well, we're going to grant waivers for everything because there could be a hurricane. You know,
I think it also depends on how the docks are laid out. The docks here are already existing. So if we were to build this brand new, starting from scratch, maybe there was a way to get the boat lift done where we wouldn't need that extra 11 feet. But the docks are in there right now, so we need that. We have to have that 11-foot buffer between the dock and the center of gravity on the lift itself.
if you're familiar with this body of water, I think that hurricane example is much more telling on docks right on the intercoastal, on wider bodies of water. It's a pretty well protected body of water. So I don't see the hurricane as being a factor in my mind. It may be, again, this is up to the board. I'm just giving you some input.
Where is
looking at
that
it from a different perspective?
Where is that northern bound dock that you have jetting out? Is that inside your property line where it's
1.4
past?
feet.
Huh?
1.4 feet from the line.
It's supposed to be in between.
No, that's what he's at.
Oh, sorry, what's the question? That's 1.4?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be 5 foot?
Yeah.
It's a 10-foot setback.
10 foot on each side, in
Yeah,
between.
this is an RS 4.4.
And that is 1.4 right now? That's 1.4 feet, that's what we know?
Yeah.
Is that correct? This, I'm looking at you're seeing this dock right here
It's 1.4 feet from the property line, correct?
from the other person's property.
Correct.
And it's supposed to be 10 foot?
Are we talking marginal dock? Because I'm
We're talking finger.
We're talking about the finger dock right here.
Under your
Because just like
interpretation,
you can't put a
finger
boat
is
that's property line to property line
yes.
because they can't, does that meet code?
No, I don't think the finger pier should be there.
There are thousands.
I'm asking, does that meet code?
It was approved by zoning and we got a permit for it. So the zoning department found that it met code. And it's not an uncommon situation. I mean,
If the zoning meets code, I guess it meets code, right?
Well, that's the other issue. That'll go up the line, and zoning will look at it, and so on and so forth. I'm not suggesting to defer this on the basis of that argument. It's separate and apart from the waiver. What I am asking the board is to think in terms of, does this satisfy extraordinary circumstances that we see time and again, high-speed area, wake, so on and so forth. And I wish I had those 11 items that you came up with not too long ago.
I was asked before this hearing to defer it based on the side setback issue.
So look, Bob, none of us are capable of responding this from a legal standpoint. We can vote on this based upon whether or not we feel it fits there and is similar to other waivers, etc. But if there's a legal issue, you got to draw a line here. Are we able to vote on whether or not we think this is okay and then whether, and then the legal issues would be dealt with later, is what you're saying?
I thought I previously addressed that. You can go ahead and approve the waiver separate and apart from the side yard setback issue. But the crucible issue here is, does it satisfy the criteria, given the facts of this case, given the facts that there's a 200-foot wide turnaround area, it's idle zone, it's in a protected area, does that meet extraordinary circumstances? As historically as that's been applied? Because that is the basis of your recommendation to the city commission. And the city commission has to have a record that supports those extraordinary circumstances.
But if we go back to that, where Sunrise Bridge is, all that area has went outside and asked for waivers, and they are using extraordinary circumstances there. What's the difference between that and that?
I'm not exactly sure what.
Up the Middle River, over by across from
Where all the
CVS,
commercial
where all the
21st up there, 20th.
They've pushed. We've done permits there too. So I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on that.
And significantly less egregious than a lot of others that have other ski zones. We're
Not
asking for
under the
essentially
bridge.
nothing.
It's past the bridge. North of the bridge is water ski ground, right? You can't water ski under south of the bridge.
You can't actually down the other side of the
South
river.
or north of the bridge.
You can do it south.
You can
When I was younger,
you can water ski right here.
Yeah.
I thought it was north of it.
Yeah, well, you
talking
can
about
go
Sunrise
through-
Bridge,
Yeah.
huh?
But
Yeah,
you're always
north
in
and
the
south side.
Activity area.
So that's where Wake Zone.
Yes.
Okay.
24
That means.
To answer your question, we've had some things that have come up recently that have caused us to start to take a much more
7:46 p.m.
scrutinized look at extraordinary circumstances. We had one case where it went up on appeal. We won. But the question is, are we really meeting those criteria? And we may end up losing some of these. And I think it becomes important for us to look at this more carefully, particularly in light of the problems we have in Western New River. And I know this is not Western New River, but I'm just asking you, does this satisfy extraordinary circumstances?
Does extraordinary circumstance play into with the waters and navigational?
Yes.
hazards?
Yes.
So it
In
could
my mind, it
be,
does.
so it could be, hey, this is however many hundreds of feet wide, this is what the navigation is, extraordinary circumstance. I'm just asking if that's a legitimate where up the New River it's going to be like, no, forget it, that's not going to work for the width of the, and there are parts of the New River, as we all know, that get really wide and there's piers in there and all that.
That's been a popular extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, right. And but at the end of the day, most of that stuff outside of a couple things get bypassed by us, whatever. But those things actually did look at navigation issues of the
Yes.
whole issue, not. I don't like it in front of my house. It doesn't look good.
Right. So what? So
Well,
out of curiosity,
because you still need the waiver, but is the waterway there so wide? Not bringing a ship down here and playing who saw the boat, but is that an extraordinary circumstance? It doesn't affect the navigable waterway or the navigation of safe waterway. It's not going to be an impediment to anything.
So look, we use this term all the time, and it sounds to me like we have to put on the agenda clarifying what extraordinary circumstances is. My question is, with due respect to the applicant and council, is if the applicant simply came to us and said, hey, I want to put a boat lift in here. My neighbors have boat lifts, I bought a new boat, I want to put a boat lift. Do we ignore them because they haven't given us a compelling reason why they want it, other than simply they'd like to boat lift?
if this were presented to the city commission and it was based on, I want it, and it was granted, the neighbor turned around, in my opinion, and could defeat it in circuit court. So we have a similar situation with the Board of Adjustment. We have a lot of people that, there are 5 criteria for the Board of Adjustment, I think. And you got to satisfy each and every one of those. And a lot of the cases that get presented to the Board of Adjustment, they don't meet any of the 5. And it's because, well, this is what I want. Well, you don't grant the variance on the basis of this is what I want. You grant the variance based on meeting the criteria.
I understand that, but I guess going forward, if the applicant again through council came to us and said, hey, look, I got this boat, I want to put a boat lift here. It's a wide canal, there should be no impact on traffic, etc. Versus citing extraordinary circumstances, could we look at it, or there needs to be a legally compelling reason?
That's one factor to take into consideration.
So,
The manufacturer of the boat that provide something other than extraordinary circumstances, it is recommended that X feet be.
Can you speak up a little bit? Can't hear you, sir.
And actually, extraordinary it means just extraordinary, not.
oh, no, we're not, trust me, we're
Oh, I know,
just
I know.
trying to wrestle with that.
I know, and I should have made the argument that we are on the 250 foot wide lake, which is definitely not normal in the city.
So, anybody else have questions? So if the, if the group doesn't really agree with the term extraordinary circumstances.
That's not an
fine.
option. That's not an
No,
option.
I'm saying, but but this moved forward because the concern was there are extraordinary circumstances. If in our minds, we don't believe there are extraordinary circumstances, can we still support the applicant?
In my opinion, if the board does not believe that the record shows extraordinary circumstances, it's your responsibility to recommend denial. If the board feels that the factors presented do amount to extraordinary circumstances, then it's your responsibility to go ahead and recommend approval, subject to that side yard setback issue.
But I also think, right, like I think what you were trying to say is extraordinary circumstances don't necessarily have to be negative impacts.
I was asking, I don't know, if
Right,
you
like
go like, hey,
positive impacts to the fact that you have such a
I have
wide
1,000
canal
feet here and I put
that
it-
you could go out a little further and not affect anything. So is that
For the most part, except
it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
for the most part, except that extraordinary circumstances have been viewed in the light of how does it negatively impact me and my property?
Right, but isn't that interpretation? Because
No, that-
extraordinary
that's
circumstances means
historically the
I
way
live
it has been
I live on a
applied.
place that is very big, so we do have a little bit extra room.
I am shopping to change this in some way, and I'll be looking for input from the board because we want to have factors that would be in favor of it and factors that would be against it.
I guess that's the way I've always taken it, is that like extraordinary negatively and extraordinary positively. Like I live on a place that affords me the ability to have this that doesn't negatively impact something. So now I look at it as, okay, you've gone out further than everyone else. You are kind of impacting, or you're not. You're staying within with everyone else, so you're not negatively impacting, and you do have the ability to have it, rather than strictly, wow, you're totally trying to take up all the space, and that's negative.
You know, there's a part of me
The
that
fact
wants
that
to apologize for opening this Pandora's box, but I'm not going to apologize
Yeah, I get it.
because we have got to go forward and work on this. We
Right, I agree with that, because we do have to have some kind of definition of some things, because if not, we're just, like you said, we're
We're
what
going
we
to lose in
believe.
circuit court if we
There's
just
no-
blindly say, yeah,
Right.
okay, you got it.
yeah, we want to just.
One quick point of information. Basically, the sentence reads here, the applicant indicates the proposed boat is necessary to safely moor the vessel's, owner's vessel due to tidal influences and storms. That's allegedly or supposedly the extraordinary circumstance.
Plus the testimony today.
But all waters in Fort Lauderdale are subject to, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Therefore, let's grant all of them without regard to
Yeah,
extraordinary.
I'm saying, but you said the negative, positive, but this is showing what the
what the negative is.
supposedly extraordinary circumstances.
Right, and positively wise, they have a big enough canal to afford this. If they have a
It's a
smaller
tough
canal,
subject,
they
guys.
wouldn't,
I mean-
it might not be more.
Is particle growth on the bottom of your boat extraordinary circumstances? You gotta
Exactly
get
right.
it out of the water. I mean, we could go on and on.
That's true.
You didn't maintain it.
So, so does anybody have any questions? Does the public have any questions?
Chair, do you mind if I enter one?
No, please do, please.
I know that this is a fruitful conversation. And there are questions, history regarding it. I ask that you don't punish the property owner for this discussion.
It's fine, I absolutely agree with that. Thank you. Terrific presentation. Thank you for the application. You never come with easy ones, I know. It's just the way.
This one was a run of the mill one. It was typical
you
to
thought.
At 6 o'clock it was. Yeah.
typical to what this board usually.
Sorry, just have my names.
That floating dock on the north side, zoning approved that years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are finger piers and mooring piles and side yard setbacks everywhere throughout this.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Anybody have a motion to move this forward, would like to approve or disapprove? Anybody make a motion to approve this? Anybody? The motion should be made in the positive. Yes. Motion to approve. Does
I
anybody?
motion to approve it. I don't see anything wrong with it other than what you're talking about. And like I said, I think that's interpretable. It's whether it's positive, negative, and again, you can always have tidal waves and all that stuff. If we don't think that if people on the board don't think that that's enough space, then hey, that's their opinion.
What council just asked us to do is to not penalize the applicant because we have a overwhelming term that we need to navigate through, and I certainly appreciate that. So based upon the merits that's been in front of you, do you have a second, by the way? Does that Bill, anybody second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'm very
Okay, I'm sorry. So before we have a vote again, we are basing our judgment on, as council has instructed us, whether or not there are extraordinary circumstances here. Your vote, based on however you see this, and as we've all said, extraordinary circumstances, we can view it differently. So I would argue that we have the term extraordinary circumstances in front of us all the time. So let's be sensitive to not necessarily penalize this applicant. So please make your decision based upon how you view this. And with that, please take a roll call.
Sure. Sorry, the motion was by Mr. Brunel. Mr. Brunel? Seconded by Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar? Mr. Flanagan?
So he's going to deal with the setback is a separate issue. Mike?
I think the record is clear on that.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Noted. Ms. Chiarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Franks?
Yes.
Mr. Knott?
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Rebholz?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
And Chair Whitten?
Yes.
Unanimous, sir.
It has passed. I think that, first of all, thank you. I appreciate it. And, thank you very much. I think we all got hung up on Bob's issue of extraordinary circumstances, and I hesitated as well. I believe, I'm just sharing my own subjective feelings, I believe that we have a big picture here. I believe Bob is absolutely correct, and I was honestly inclined to turn this down, but I think that we are improperly penalizing an applicant who really has done nothing wrong. We have a big, we have a big picture we have to address, and so thank you, Bob, and appreciate all that. Okay, we will follow up, and we will put the term extraordinary circumstances on the agenda, and I will follow up with Andrew and Bob on that, hopefully report back next month. That brings us to 601 Cordova Road, which is a permit application. Sean, take it. Thank you very much. Who is presenting here for this? Yes.
My name is Hector Navarro. Thank you, board, for taking time for my application. Hopefully mine is much simpler. We already got made a mistake and built the dock within a foot, I think it was, of the setback. We remediated the situation, but we're back here, requested permission to get it permitted again.
You're back here. Speak up a bit, Barbara.
That the application already got approved back in May, I believe, and our subcontractor made a mistake and built the dock into the setback. So we had to essentially just cut the dock back And that's why we're back here asking for a new.
So you're compliant now?
Yes,
So
we're
maybe,
compliant.
Andrew, can you explain that, please, what happened there?
So the previous, so along Cordova Road, as you may know, there's a 5-foot setback on the dock itself. The previous dock was installed just about to the
About a
property
foot.
line on the north end. And what they've done is they're making it right. They're pulling it back to within the setbacks, in fact, 20 some odd feet on both ends of the dock at an 80-foot wide property. So they're making it compliant is what they're doing.
So,
And now the property is being sold, so we gotta go through a dock permit to renew it.
so that's the whole point. This is a typical Cordova Road issue, as you probably recall. Every time a property is sold, we have to go through this again. Hector, nice job. I think everything has been done according to the requests. Andrew's cool with it. This is a Cordova Road. We know it's difficult. There's no piercing into the wall, etc. So with that, I request does anybody have let me just make sure I have. Okay. Can I have a motion? Anybody? Yes, sir. Mr.
Second.
Ripple. Second, Elizabeth George.
Who's first? I'm sorry.
Ed Redholz or Bill Walker.
Walker.
So we have a motion in front of us.
Whoever.
Pick one.
Pick one.
What's your name? We have a motion in front of us to approve the request for this permit at 601 Cordova Road, and we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Sure, just 1 second. Okay, Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. George,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Chiarelli. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Mr. Knott,
Yes.
Mr. Rebholz,
Yes.
and Chair White.
Yes. So that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back to see us. And I thank you. Pretty straightforward as Cordova Road is. Thank you again. This brings us to, we had a dock permit at 823 Southeast Second Street that's been deferred. That brings us to a dock waiver at 1414, 1424, and 1500 Southeast 12th Street. Hemingway Landing is Condominium Association. We have Romney Rogers, right?
Yes.
Pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Do
you.
you
Thank you all for allowing me to be here. I'd just like to introduce Romney Rogers, my father, and my associate here at the law firm is Karen as well. I represent Hemingway Landing's condominium. Most of you may know it as, actually you can slip to that next slide, please. Most of you may know it as the property that lies right there on 12th Street as you turn in to go to the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Club. It's the first condominium that's right there. It's 3 different units, 3 different buildings. There's 21 units there, 21 unit owners, and therefore 21 slips. Each unit owner has a slip assigned to them. So here's some aerial views of the marina. You can see starting slip 1 in your far left, top left, slip 1 to 11, and then we go to slip 13 to 21 there on your right, and then down below you see from 14 looking west, and then you see the last few on your bottom right, from 19 looking east down the river there. So what we're asking for today is a distance waiver. These pilings that you're looking at, actually, if you can go to the next slide, please. There are 26 dolphin pilings. You'll see there in the survey. It's quite small. There's a chart if you keep going in the slides. So here's a chart. This lists all 26 pilings. We had a survey done. These 26 pilings, 4 out of the 26 are actually within compliance, within the 25 feet. There's 9 of them that are within a foot of 25 feet. Most of those being within 7 inches of the 25 feet from the property line into the waterway. And then after that, you have between 1 to 2 feet, and the furthest distance is 2 foot 7 inches from beyond the 25-foot limitation. This is 118 foot wide, and the thinnest part of this waterway, 118 feet wide. It actually, as the river goes further east, it actually gets wider. There's a big bend that goes around there. So even at the furthest, this dolphin piling being 27.7 to the waterway, it's not within the navigable waterway. That's around 30, I think around 35 feet or so in the tightest of areas. So the issue has arisen that all 21 unit owners have actually received a notice of violation for this 25-foot limitation. 22 out of the 26 are beyond the 25 feet, but they're all within 2.7 feet of 25 feet, most of them being within a foot and a half. So what we're requesting today is that we receive an after the fact waiver. The extraordinary circumstances under this situation are that we need the dolphin pilings there, obviously, to secure the vessels if there's severe weather storm to come through, and a lot of boat traffic does go through there, so it gets wake traffic. Secondly, most of these were the original pilings that were installed when the development was put into place in 2009. There's only a few of these that actually have been updated and moved, and those are the ones that really are the furthest out. So lastly, if the ones that are the 9 that are within 1 foot of the 25 feet, the problem is the contractors actually expressed this to us. If we move that piling and try to move it within 7 inches on some of these circumstances, it's actually going to probably lean back into the original embedment. And so it's not actually going to probably stay in compliance if we were to do that. Secondly, if you removed it and put it 7 inches, a 12-inch or 10-inch pile 7 inches further in, it could interfere with the stability of that piling because it's just going to not be in a tight hole. So there's a problem with most of these being moved in the first place. So we would ask that the board would consider a after the fact distance waiver on all of these pilings, and would welcome any questions that you have.
So go ahead. Were the ones that were, you said there's only a few that were updated since 2009, and they're the ones that are 2.7 over? Did they just get a replacement permit? Is that what it was? And then they just put it right back down, or do we know that at all?
Well, I can only speak to really one of the furthest one that's 2.7. There's two here at 2.7. That's the furthest out by about 4 inches. I think the closest one is 2.3 out of that. But 2.7 was related to a lift being installed. It was permitted to be 25 feet, and that's the result that it was put in. Right.
So you've had, so the pilings that are there, they've existed. Impressed with that. I mean, really, we got a foot or two. I can't get over that.
For that little distance
Yeah.
too, that's amazing.
So one of the questions I guess
somebody met.
Yeah. So one of the questions I have that we've noticed from driving there. So you've got your dolphin piles coming out, etc., but your boats are exceeding well past 25 feet, correct?
There are some. I don't know the exact distance of all the ones in the marina there, but there are.
Okay, the code provides that a vessel cannot go beyond 30% of the width of the canal. It's not judged by the 25 foot. And I will agree with you, there's a lot of them that are in violation. But that's not our issue.
No, it's not, but you were the one that raised it.
It's getting late.
Yes.
I raised it because somebody very wise around me raised it as well, but that's just one of the concerns
So
we
big-
have.
How wide's that right there?
So the thinnest part is about 118, and then it gets wider.
Yeah, up
as
and
it goes
around
around the
here,
bend.
up in there.
Right.
So it's 118 feet?
So the request is to basically approve, as you referred to as after the fact, if you want an after the fact waiver for existing dolphin piles. It does nothing with the boats, that doesn't change, and that becomes more of an enforcement issue. Okay. Does anybody have an issue with this? Does anybody have confusion again? I don't, I mean, I just can't imagine, and I know I'm not supposed to be talking subjectively, asking people to pull out pilings that have been there for 15 years and are a foot or two over. Does anybody have an issue with that, please?
I just want to say, I've navigated that canal with boats with beams close to 30 feet bringing catamarans down there. Those pilings have never been an impediment to
Are
moving
the
down.
boats themselves?
No, because it's really a small boat area.
I mean, there's this one long one is still probably.
I've never, even with boats that were on both sides of it, there was a large Marlow on one side. I have never had a problem getting a boat down that canal.
Anybody have questions, issues? Anybody from the public? Anything else?
That's it.
So,
I'd like to make a motion to approve with,
Bill Walker?
hang on, with stipulation, okay, no, that if, when they have to replace the pilings, they put it back to the 25 feet.
So
2
replace
to
the
6
pilings,
inches.
meaning the worms
Well,
are
yeah,
destroyed
so,
or
you know,
whatever.
whatever, so you have to-
Is that okay? That what you do,
If they have to
you do have to replace the piling.
How does that ever get managed?
I can write it into the resolution that's gonna grant the darn
Well,
thing,
that's
but
what
it's a
I'm-
question of enforcement going out.
Yeah, how's that?
And,
You know,
theoretically, if you're gonna remove a pile and put a new one in, you need a permit. So it should get caught at that point.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll just go with the,
And technically, you would have to come back here if it was past the 25.
Correct. And so are you traveling with your stipulation that if it's moved, it has to be moved back within the 25, or you're not traveling?
if you're gonna say it's gonna get caught later on, then no, because I don't think anybody here is gonna remember this.
Then this-
So my
So your motion is without
my
that
motion
stipulation.
is to approve. the
I second it.
So we have a motion to approve as presented. Well, this is George, as seconded. Let's have a roll call vote.
Yes. She.
I'm sorry.
No, we've been doing jokes over here.
Mr. Walker.
Yes, please.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan.
Yes.
Ms. Chiarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Brunel.
Yes.
Mr. French.
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar.
Yes.
Mr. Knopf.
Yes.
And Mr. Revolts.
Yeah.
And Chair Wick.
So yes, that's approved, and I want you to know that we joke because we just have to be like, nobody's paid for this, but we couldn't take this more seriously. It was a terrific presentation, and we are very sensitive to the condo owners, and we can't tell them this whole time. But again, as we go forward, again, you know, just we'll be reasonable. Our only issue again is boats sticking out, but great job. You taught them well. Thank you.
Appreciate
So that brings us to, great job, guys, by the way. That brings us to old new business, unless everybody's completely pooped. I'm not gonna look at time.
It's after.
Okay, so I guess, so my question is, I'm gonna go through a couple of things real quickly, just because they're on my schedule. Thank you, guys. Couple quick notes for you all. John Nigro, Informa Boat Show. John was gonna come to this meeting, but, I guess they ended up, getting the Newport show, so John's up there. John will come on the October meeting and give us a presentation on the boat show behind the scenes, what actually goes into it. So no self-aggrandizing how cool they are, just showing how many miles of cable, etc. Really cool presentation. So he's going to be there. Patience also suggested that we invite Alice Perry
who's responsible for the Winterfest. She hasn't responded. I'll follow up with that. We obviously want to make sure that we make a big deal about Winterfest, as we certainly will on the boat show. I have couple things. Would you put up slide number? I forgot what it was. So this was mentioned. I sent this. I think to Bob the other day. So I guess the other day there was a internet or something. I don't know where I found this, but there was a company advertising charter dock for rent. You may have seen this, but basically you have companies out there that are offering commercial dock pickup and drop off, which is a wonderful idea. We suggested the city do something like it, maybe make it a profit center. Problem is, this is completely illegal, as I understand. So, I believe.
Jump into it. It's only a $25 charge, so it's fine.
I believe was Bob was looking into it, but the fact is that we've got one of Jimmy's issues that I was reading from last month is this ongoing issue about commercial dockage. Where does where's a pontoon boat go, dry tie up, etc. We don't have answers, but folks are trying to figure out every way to work around it. So just be aware of it. It's an ongoing issue. John Muskin, big issue with the party boats, etc. And we'll continue to work on it. There's no answers. It's just stuff that's going on around it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we ended up, they're being cited for three different zoning code violations.
Commercial arts.
First of all, if you took a picture of the darn thing on Google Maps, you'll find it as an isolated storefront. And obviously what they're doing generates a lot of traffic. They don't have adequate parking for that volume. There were three other things, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but it was not a permitted use. It was a conditional use, and they didn't go through the conditional use process to justify it. Even had they applied for it, I think they probably would have denied. Yes.
There's endless issues associated with it. So it's just something going on in our town. We have, I don't know who that is. I know they've been
somewhere. It was somewhere on 20th Avenue.
Yeah, up there.
Yeah. Pardon me?
Wasn't James Campbell?
No, it wasn't James Campbell. No. That's for another day.
Not yet.
So we have a new Broward County Commissioner for Fine. I've been introduced to Richard Walter. I believe Richard's going to join us on our next meeting, etc. Fine, as you know, is a huge friend to this board and the town, etc. So we want to welcome him. I mentioned the Winterfest, which is coming up, which is December 12th, and the boat show, which is October 30th. One of the issues, again, brought up and discussed, and this won't go any further than this, but when we talked about the ceasing of the moratorium's over, but we're still being active on this. And just food for thought is, can we make a recommendation? One of the basis of our what we're working on was changing a 30% rule to a 25% rule. I'm just talking in theoretical terms. Can the board recommend something like that goes up to the commission?
Yes. I'd have to dig into the 30% versus 25%, particularly the fact that it's on New River and that's submerged lands.
But we can take smaller steps, is what I'm saying.
And that's one of the things that I'm working on. When I brought up the discussion about extraordinary circumstances, I'm looking at using a different label that would have factors that would justify granting a waiver and factors that would justify not granting a waiver.
Lastly, before I turn over, so Jimmy, again, if you looked at our notes, quite a few things, as George said, Ms. George stated she'd like to continue discussion of cleaner waterways, certainly on our list. We've talked about a commercial barge location, et cetera. So there's a number of items that we're going to work on moving forward. And what I'll do is I'll put together a note to summarize the things that you all talked about last meeting and see if we can bring it up again. With that, I turn it over. Does anybody have concerns, questions, any thoughts, anything? Oh,
yeah.
Public, anybody?
Let me throw one out. Find my. You showed me a picture. I think it was in Los Alamos area of a floating vessel platform extending 40 feet out into the waterway without any pilings.
Just a pipe.
Huh?
Just concrete.
Well, 2 pilings at the wall.
Concrete pipe.
Okay. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about times that I've been out on the water when I probably should have been out on the water at night, and you're going down the waterway and that thing's only about that far above the level of the water. I see that as a navigational hazard, quite frankly. What I am thinking to do is, with regard to these floating vessel platforms, requiring that you have the pilings out at the end with the reflectors. Any thoughts? Anybody along the line?
I told you here that we had, so I live over on South Gordon. We were close to the jet ski rental areas, etc. We had a group of jet ski renters, and the guy drove straight into a dolphin pond. Now, fortunately, they're moving slowly, but hit it dead on, got knocked off, and they got him out of there, etc. But these, they're just random dolphin pilings with no reflectors. You should make that a requirement.
So can you require that?
I don't know.
So are you saying all dolphin pilings would have to have reflective?
No, wait a minute. I'm isolating my conversation on the floating vessel platform.
Right.
Okay. And I think that at the end of that floating vessel platform, there should be pilings with the reflectors. Yeah. So that it's seen, because I'm more concerned with when a vessel is not sitting on top of it.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's very easy
hard
to
to see.
run
It
into
looks
something
like
like
it's
that.
water.
Yeah.
So what Bob's talking about, this is a neighbor of ours put in the dock blocks. And, not only are they a foot off the water, but they're black, so you don't see these. And they're, again, intruding way into the canal. So it's an issue, and it clearly shouldn't.
So, Bob, you're talking about a floating lift, right?
No,
not
Or just even
you drive on it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Now,
okay.
what's happened is there is one installer manufacturer called JetDock. And JetDock got their attorneys to go to Tallahassee and generated some legislation under the guise of pollution control, which basically says that we can't subject them to any of our zoning ordinances. One of the little areas that I looked at was an exception for that is if it's a navigational hazard. So that's where I'm thinking of, okay, put the pilings in there, make it a rebuttable presumption that it's a navigable, strike that it's an impediment to navigation, a navigational hazard without that. That's where that thought process. Now what's interesting is I talked to Tyler. JetDock's the only one out there. The others are just subjecting themselves to the process. I'm probably going to go ahead and create an entry to this process that becomes so difficult that it might be easier to just go through the ULDR process.
It's a real issue. And as is just in general, the CAN docks and the jet docks, et cetera. My concern with those docks is that they have been viewed as temporary structures, not permanently attached. And therefore, again, you can kind of just throw them in anywhere. So that's, again, a whole nother discussion. Anybody else? Everybody hungry? How about a motion?
Beef sandwiches on you.
You got it. Motion to adjourn, Bill Walker.